March of the Machines has brought a new card type to Magic, the battle. So battles are really interesting. When you play a battle, it goes onto the battlefield under your control and ownership, but an opponent is chosen to defend it, meaning they can put their creatures in front of the battle as you attempt to attack it. Kind of like attacking a planeswalker, where instead of attacking your opponent, you attack the battle. They have health or defense counters equal to the number in the lower right. They can be damaged with spells or abilities that say deal damage to any target, and you can also remove the counters in other ways. Cards like Vampire Hexmage will instantly remove all counters from a battle. When the counters from a battle are removed, you transform it and then cast the other side. When you cast the other side, it has all the properties of one of those spells on the stack. So if it's a creature, you can counter it with a counter spell that counters creatures. So that's how they work. But how good are they? I want to go through and rate all of them. I'm going to be focused here on Commander as a format, and just off the bat, I'm going to say I think battles are probably going to be decent in Commander. There's a lot of shenanigans you can do. If you like the ability on the front side, you can use Brago to flicker it a bunch to reuse its effect. And also, when you look at the table, you're very often going to have one opponent that probably doesn't have too many creatures in play that you can attack easily. So let's just get into it. First, we got Invasion of Alara, Wooburg, and when it enters the battlefield, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile 2 non-land cards with mana value 4 or less. Put one into your hand, you may cast the other without paying its mana cost. So kind of like Cascade, but you draw an extra one, and then the other cards go on the bottom in a random order. 7 defense counters. Now the other side is a sorcery that is all colors. Target player draws 2 cards. You may put an artifact from your hand onto the battlefield. Create a token that's a copy of a permanent you control. Distribute 3 counters among 1, 2, or 3 creatures you control, and destroy target permanent an opponent controls. Oh my god, a lot of text. This card's really, really good though. If you're in some kind of 5-color good stuff value pile, cascading, then this is probably good enough for you. Also, you're going to want to have at least some density of artifacts to use the backside of it, but the front side is already pretty good. And when you cast the backside, oh, it's like a 6 for 1, 7 for 1. I can't even count. If you're a 5-color value deck, pick one of these up. It's gonna be really good. Honestly, 7 out of 10, a bit niche, but pretty strong. And then we got Invasion of Amonkhet, black, blue 1 for a 4 defense counter siege. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills 3. Then each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. And then when you flip it, it becomes a copy of any creature in a graveyard except as a 4/4 zombie in addition to its other types. So if you're in a mill deck, it's actually not too bad. It's a pretty decent rate. Cantrips, your opponents all lose a card and they mill. Or if you're in some sort of like Dimir Theft mill pile, which could be the same deck, then it's okay. I think this card's like a maybe 5 out of 10. Only 4 damage is actually kind of easy to flip, so if your commander can hit it, maybe it gets better. Otherwise, there's probably better spells. Invasion of Archivos. 3 blue for a 7 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, search your library, graveyard, and or outside the game for an instant or sorcery you own, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So a 5 mana solve the equation, but it can get stuff from the graveyard or exile. Kind of meh. The other side, though, is pretty powerful. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery from your hand, you may copy the spell. That's really strong. The problem is, if you're in some sort of deck where you want to be tutoring up instants and sorceries, you're probably not huge on creatures, and I don't know how easily you can actually flip this. I think 7 is kind of a lot, and it's pretty slow to put together. And then you have to cast the enchantment and it can still get destroyed once it's an enchantment. I don't know, probably a 5 out of 10. I think it's probably too slow for most playgroups. Invasion of Asgol, red-black for a 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, target player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and loses 1 life. And then you flip it, it's a 2/1 with menace. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on it if a permanent was put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn. If you're in some sort of Rakdos Aristocrats deck where you want to be sacrificing things and force your opponent to sacrifice things, then this card's actually not bad. 2 mana to make an opponent sacrifice a creature or planeswalker isn't awful. It is sorcery speed, but still not terrible. And the fact that if you wanted to, you could eventually flip it into this creature that'll grow, it's not horrible. It's 6 out of 10, decent card. Invasion of Belenon. 2 and a white, 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, make a 2/2 white and blue knight with vigilance. And the other side is an Anthem. Creatures you control get +1/+1. It's not amazing. Maybe if you're Knight Tribal, you would want something like this, but this is limited fodder. Don't play it. 3 out of 10. Invasion of Dominaria. 2 and a white for 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, gain 4 life, draw a card. So sorcery speed cantrip kind of, and then it flips into a 4/4 with flying and vigilance. Another card that's not super powerful, if you're in a blink deck like Brago, taking advantage of flickering the front half to gain a bunch of life and draw cards is actually pretty decent. And in a pinch, you could flip it if you were able to deal the damage. Again, kinda niche, 2 out of 10, not a great card. Invasion of Eldraine, 3 and a black for a 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards 2 cards. And then when you flip it, it's a 2/2 with flying at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If they have 2 or fewer cards at hand, it deals 2 damage to them. If you're in a discard deck, this is okay. I don't know how reliably you can flip it, but the front half is okay, and the back half's actually kind of where you want to be. It's probably going to be a good budget option for dedicated discard decks. 4 out of 10. Invasion of Ergamon. Green-red for a 5 defense battle. When Invasion of Ergamon enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Then you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So that front half already pretty good. It's essentially 1 mana, discard, draw. And then the flip side is a 3/4 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, search your library for a land or battle, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So if you want to be playing all the battles, this is probably a good one since it tutors up a battle. Otherwise, if you're just in a Gruul deck that cares about the graveyard in some way or treasures, the front half is pretty decent, and I would actually consider it. 5 out of 10, not a bad card. Invasion of Fiora. Black 4 for a 4 defense siege. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1 or both. Destroy all legendary creatures, destroy all non-legendary creatures. So if you choose both, you can just blow everything up, which is pretty sweet. The other side is a new Marchesa, a 3/6 with Menace and Death Touch. When Marchesa attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt combat damage since your last turn, draw a card, lose a life. So this is great in a couple of places. 1, it's just a board wipe on the front side, not a bad thing. 6-mana is a bit expensive, but it's still decent. The back side works great in a Monarch deck if you want to pillar fort up and not be attacked, or when you attack, removing all counters from up to 1 target permanent will instantly flip another battle. So if you want to go 5 color battles and jam all these in a deck, this will be an all-star. Invasion of Gobakan. White and 1 for a 3 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. As long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. And the flip side, at the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. Sacrifice it. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This one is amazing. This is my first 10 out of 10. In the right deck, this card is phenomenal. You can flicker it a bunch to yoink cards from people's hands and tax them for their spells, or if you're creature oriented and you flip it quickly, it can protect your stuff, but then it also pumps them. In a counters deck, in any go wide strategy, tokens, this card is going to be really good. And it's only 2 mana on the front half, defense 3. This is by far one of the best battles. I think I gotta give it a 10 out of 10. This is a really strong battle. Invasion of Ikoria. Green X, 6 defense counters. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature with a mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So a tutor on the front half, pretty damn good. And then the back half is an 8/8 with reach. For each non-human creature you control, you may have that creature assign combat damage as though it weren't blocked. This is going to be yet another 10 out of 10 battle. A tutor on one side that can flip into an incredibly powerful finisher that just lets you slam through for tons of damage is amazing. This is one of those really powerful cards that is going to be a commander staple. Even in CDH, honestly, just another tutor, it could see some play. Phenomenal card. Invasion of Innistrad, black 2 for 5 defense Battle. It has Flash this time. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -13/-13 until end of turn. So the front half already not awful. 4 mana for spot removal isn't great, but the fact that you can like flicker it to repeat this effect is pretty sweet. And then the backside is an enchantment that when it enters the battlefield to create 2/2 black zombies, and then you can pay a black and 2 to exile a card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, make a 2/2 zombie. So if you're zombie tribal, this is pretty good. If you're just a control deck, it's actually not awful. Play it early, kill a creature, late game, you ping it down, eventually flipping it, and then you just get a swarm of zombies. I actually kind of like this one. 6 out of 10. Invasion of Ixalan. A 4 defense siege. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal a permanent from among them, put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And then it flips into a 4/3 dinosaur with trample. Whenever you cast a spell, it gains indestructible until end of turn. This one's okay. It's, I don't think, really made for Commander. I think this is probably a decent standard card. For Commander purposes, I'm gonna say 1 out of 10, pretty meh. Maybe an okay cantrip. Invasion of Kaladesh. Blue-red for a 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, make a Thopter. And then it flips into a vehicle with flying, and its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. Crew 1. I like this card. It makes a Thopter, which, if your opponent doesn't really have many flyers, will just eventually chip in and flip it by itself. And then that Thopter could crew this vehicle, which could be huge. It's more of a fun card than anything in Commander. I don't think it's very powerful. I will probably try and jam it in some deck. 4 out of 10, pretty neat, but ultimately kind of meh. Invasion of Kaldheim. 3 in a red for a 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your hand. Then draw that many cards. Until the end of your next turn, you may play cards exiled this way. So this is another really good one on the front half. It's basically a Winds of Change for you, but you can still play the cards that were in your hand before. So you essentially double your hand size for a turn. And then when you flip it, it's an enchantment that has discard a land, deal 2 damage to any target, and whenever you discard a land, exile the top card of your library, you may play it this turn. I love these kind of seismic assault sort of effects. Really, really fun. I don't even think you need to be a lands deck though. Like if you're just mono red and you want to draw cards, then this is a really great option. Honestly, you don't even have to be mono red. This is just a good card draw spell. I'd play it in a lot of decks. 8 out of 10, probably a staple. Invasion of Kamigawa. 3 in a blue for 4 defense siege. ETB, tap target artifact or creature an opponent's controls, put a stun counter on it, and then the flip side is a 2/3 with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player or battle, draw a card. This one kind of is limited fodder, I think. Not great for Commander. 1 out of 10, probably wouldn't play it. Invasion of Karsus. Red 2 for a 4 defense counter battle. When it enters the battlefield, deal 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, and then it flips into a 4/4 elemental with ward, pay 2 life, and whenever you cast a spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. I really like this card for red Spellslinger decks. The front side is a great way to clear the board early. Not super good in Commander, but still decent. And then the flip side is actually pretty powerful. It's just a gutter snipe. 5 out of 10, pretty good. Invasion of Kyla. 2 red-white for 5 defense counter battle. When it enters the battlefield, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+0, vigilance, and haste until end of turn. And the flip side is a sorcery that makes 2 3/2 red and white warriors with whenever this creature and at least one other creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So I don't know about this one. I think the front side's kind of weak because these are sorcery speed and this is 4 mana. Giving haste to a creature is kind of meh. You'd have to play something and then this for the haste to even matter. And then giving 2 creatures haste is kind of worthless. So it's just the vigilance, and there's better ways to give vigilance. The backside's not amazing either. 2 out of 10. Invasion of Lorwyn. 4 black-green for a 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-elf an opponent controls with power X or less, where X is the number of lands you control. And the flip side is a big elf warrior with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. This card is not great. It only hits 1 creature, and then the flip side is just an okay elf. And elf decks don't even ramp that many lands out because they play more mana dorks. 2 out of 10, it's not great. Invasion of Mercadia. Red and 1 for 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. And the flip side is a 3/3 Goblin Spell Shaper. Red and 2, discard a card. Create 2 1/1 blue and red elementals. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste. So the front side is pretty decent, and the back is also really good. I like this Spell Shaper. Giving your whole team haste is awesome, and it makes 2 little tokens. Any go wide red deck would probably make good use of this. 6 out of 10. Good card. Invasion of Moag. 2 green-white for a 5 defense battle. ETB, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then it flips into a 3/3 with a ward 2, and at the beginning of your end step, put a counter on target creature you control. This one's not great. 3 out of 10. I mean, if the backside put a counter on every creature you control every turn, I think it'd be pretty good. But the fact that it's just 1, that just makes it too slow, too weak. I wouldn't play it. Invasion of Maragda? No way I pronounced that right. Green and 4 for a 6 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. And it flips into a 4/4 ooze with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, another creature gets +2/+2 and loses all abilities until end of turn. So the front side's like kind of removal if you can fight, and the back side is also kind of removal, assuming you have big creatures. You can turn their Death Touch creature into nothing, but it gets +2/+2, so you can swing in. It's a cute card. 4 out of 10. Not insane, but I could see somebody playing in the right deck. Maybe Ooze Tribal. Invasion of New Capenna. Black, white for a 4 defense siege. ETB, sacrifice an artifact or creature. If you do, exile an artifact, a creature an opponent controls, and then it flips into an equipment with equip 1, and whenever equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and each other creature that shares a type with it. So the front side's meh, it's okay, but the second half is really good. Tribal decks obviously would really love this. Super sweet with changelings, because then it just pumps your whole team. And equip 1 means even if they kill the creature, just for 1 mana, you slap it on the next one and keep going. I think this card's really, really powerful, actually. 6 out of 10, a bit limited in its scope, but really good in the decks that want it. Invasion of New Phyrexia. Blue-white X for a battle with 6 defense counters. ETB, make X 2/2 white and blue knights with vigilance. And then it flips into Teferi, a planeswalker with +1, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature. -2, you get an emblem with knights you control, get +1/+0 and have ward 1. And -3, tap X creatures you control. When you do, shuffle target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value X or less into their library. 4 starting loyalty. The front half is decent in a go-wide token deck or Knight Tribal deck, and the back half is not bad either. You can just kind of use him to draw 2, discard 2 every turn if you want, and immediately getting that emblem is really good for a Knight Tribal deck. This is a pretty decent battle. Both sides are relevant, maybe the backside less so if you're more tokens than knights, but I like the card. 7 out of 10, pretty good. Invasion of Pyrulia. Green, blue for a 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, scry 3. Then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land or double-faced card, draw a card. And it flips into a 4/4 with trample, ward 2, and other transformed permanents you control have trample and ward 2. So decent for battle tribal, but also if you are playing like a werewolf deck that has blue in it, you could throw this in to help you transform cards. I like unique effects like this. I think we're not quite there where this would be a really good card yet, but it is interesting and I would keep it in the back of my mind for some other mechanic maybe coming out later. 5 out of 10 for now. Invasion of Ravnica. 5 generic. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls that isn't exactly 2 colors. Defense 4. It flips into a 5/5 construct artifact creature. When you cast a spell that's exactly 2 colors, look at the top 6 cards of your library, you may reveal a card that's exactly 2 colors, put it in your hand. The rest go on the bottom in a random order. So this card is another like 10 out of 10. It's removal of almost any permanent type for colorless, meaning enchantment removal in your black decks or battle removal in your colorless decks. As long as it's not exactly 2 colors, it can get rid of most things, and it exiles. That front half is so good that I don't even think you need to use the back half very much to get full value out of it, but if you're playing like Visit or a deck that just has a lot of 2-color cards, the back half is then good value, and you can build around it if you want, but I don't think you need to. This card's probably going to be a staple in colorless decks and maybe a few low-color commander decks as well. Invasion of Regantha. 2 and a red for a 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, deal 4 damage to another battle or opponent, and 1 damage to 1 creature. And then it flips into a 4/4 human monk with prowess. If a non-creature source you control would deal damage to a creature, battle, or opponent, it deals that much plus 2 instead. So this is sweet in any kind of like spell burn deck that you might want to build in Commander. I really love these cards. I really like that archetype. And it can help you flip your battles if you're playing multiple battles in your deck. So pretty good. 6 out of 10. A bit niche, but I actually think the back half is decently strong. A 4/4 with prowess is nothing to sneeze at. Invasion of Segovia. 2 and a blue for 4 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Krakens with trample, and then it flips into a 3/3 with non-creature spells you cast have Convoke. At the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. So this card is really good in certain decks. Any deck that wants to either convoke a lot of things or just untap their creatures, use tap abilities, you want to attack, you want to be on defense. This effect is pretty powerful on the backside. And the front half isn't awful either, especially if you have ways to pump up those 1/1s because they do have trample. 6 out of 10, I think this card's going to play a lot better than it reads. Invasion of Chandalar. Green 3 for a 4 defense battle. ETB, return up to 3 target permanents from your graveyard to your hand, and it flips into an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. 9 out of 10. This is a casual Commander all-star. The front half is okay at 5 mana, actually bad, but the back half, this is a kill on sight enchantment. Being able to put any permanent onto the battlefield every turn is crazy strong. I would watch out for this card. You can't let it sit around for more than like 2 turns, otherwise you're probably going to lose. Invasion of Tarkir, red and 1 for a 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, reveal any number of dragon cards in your hand. If you do, deals X plus 2 to any other target, where X is the number of cards revealed, and it flips into a 4/4 with flying and trample, and whenever a dragon you control attacks, it deals 2 damage to any target. 5 out of 10, very good in Dragon Tribal. Invasion of Theros. 2 and a white for a 4 defense battle. ETB, search your library for an aura, god, or demigod, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So a pretty competitive rate to tutor an aura or god. And then the back half is a crazy enchantress. A 4/4 god with lifelink and indestructible as long as you control 3 other enchantments. And whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Really good in any type of aura deck. 7 out of 10. The front half is pretty fairly costed, and the back half is a really powerful creature. Invasion of Tolvada. Black, white, 3 for a 5 defense battle. ETB, return target non-battle permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then the front half, creature tokens you control get +1/+0 and have lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 white and black spirit with flying. Honestly, the front half is basically just Obsidat's Aid, which I already think is a pretty decent card. You don't even need the backside for this to be an okay card. And then the fact that it just makes a 1/1 every turn, and it gives those 1/1s +1/+0 and lifelink, not bad. I would consider playing this in decks even without a token theme. It kind of works by itself. 8 out of 10. Invasion of Ulgrotha. 4 and a black for a 5 defense battle. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any other target, and you gain 3 life. And then it flips into a flying 3/3 human wizard, with whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on and gain a life. This card is very okay. 3 out of 10. It's fine. It can hit battles, which is nice. And it deals damage in mono black, which is interesting, but still not an amazing card. Invasion of Vryn. Blue and 3 for a 4 defense battle. ETB, draw 3, discard a card. So, okay card advantage, but it's sorcery speed, so maybe meh card advantage. And the flip side is an artifact with pay 1, tap, sacrifice it, copy target spell you control. I like this card a lot. I don't think it's amazing. I'm definitely going to put it in some of my artifact decks just to get some value from it. It's 5 out of 10. It's fine. Invasion of Xerix. 2 blue, white. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. And then it flips into an Angel Knight. with flying, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, and this card's not great, I think. 4 mana at sorcery speed to bounce 1 creature to its owner's hand? It really sucks, especially in blue-white. And the backside isn't that good either. 1 out of 10, this might be my least favorite one. And last but not least, Invasion of Zendikar. Green and 3 for a 3 defense siege. ETB, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then it flips to a 4/4 with vigilance and haste. As long as it's on the battlefield, it's a land in addition to its other types, and it can add 1 mana of any color. This might come as a surprise, but I think this is like an 8 out of 10. It is a strict upgrade over the other 4 mana sorcery speed ramp 2 spells, or at least most of them, like Explosive Vegetation. And then the fact that it can just become like a 4/4 that blocks and attacks and taps for mana is pretty good. I think we'll see this card a ton in green decks in the coming years. So that was every battle from the new set. What do you think about these battles? What's your favorite? Did I miss anything about any of these? Did I get any of them wrong? These cards are honestly really hard to evaluate because, like, how difficult is battle 5 versus 4? I'm not really sure yet. Are you going to be putting more creatures in your deck in anticipation for battles? Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, please subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.